Have you ever read a poem and just wondered, what's really going on under the hood? Like, what are the gears and levers that make it work? Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're using a poem that's about poetry to be our guide. So let's jump into The Cadence by Pseudo van der Wit and build our very own poet's toolkit. Right off the bat, the poem hits us with this fantastic piece of advice. The whole point here isn't to create some scary, monumental work of art. Nope, it's about getting your hands dirty, understanding the craft, and just playing with language to see what happens. This line just sets the perfect tone for us. Keep it accessible, get creative, and absolutely no pressure. All right, so every craft needs its tools, right? For a poet, the most basic tools in the box are sound and rhythm. We're going to start at the very beginning with the absolute fundamentals, the sounds and the beats that create the pulse of a poem. This, my friends, is where the magic really starts. Okay, now this is so cool. This shows you the ladder, the hierarchy of sound in poetry. The poem tells us to literally juggle the vowels and consonants, and everything else just builds from there. You see, those sounds clump together into syllables. Then, the syllables group up into these little rhythmic packets called feet. And finally, you just count the feet to get the length of your line. It's this beautiful, logical journey from the tiniest sound all the way up to a full line of poetry.
So before we can really get those feet, we have to understand the engine that makes them run: stress. In pretty much every word we say, some syllables get a little more punch than others. Think about the word poetry. You hear that? The po gets the strong beat. This pattern, this da-dum rhythm of stressed and unstressed syllables, is literally the heartbeat of a poem. It's what gives it that rhythm you can feel.
So a poetic foot is just one of those repeating patterns. That's it. You can think of it like a single measure or a beat in a piece of music. It's the simple, repeatable, rhythmic chunk that a poet uses to build out a line.
And would you look at all the different flavors you can choose from? Our source poem just rattles off a whole bunch of these. You've got the super famous iambic, which is that classic heartbeat sound, da-dum. Or you could flip it with a trochee, dum-da. Each one has a totally different vibe, a different energy. They're all just patterns in the toolkit waiting to be used.
Now, when you start stringing those feet together one after another in a line, bam, you've got meter. Meter is just the word for the overall rhythm of that line. So if you have, say, 5 of those iambic feet in a row, you've got a line of iambic pentameter. See? It's just the blueprint for the line's rhythm.
And all those big fancy-sounding words, don't let them scare you. They're basically just Greek for counting. Like the poem says, pentameter, hexameter, heptameter. That's just a way of saying a line has 5 feet, or 6 feet, or 7 feet. It's so much simpler than it sounds. So remember, meter is just 2 things: what kind of foot and how many. That's the whole secret.
Okay, so we've got our rhythmic building blocks down. Now let's see how we can use them to build something bigger. We're moving from the nuts and bolts to the actual blueprints of a poem. Once you get rhythm, you can start to explore all these amazing, larger structures and forms that poets have been using for centuries.
And what a menu it is! The Cadence just throws out a ton of options for us to try. You can write something full of praise, like an ode, or something sad, like an elegy. You can try to follow the super strict rules of a sonnet or a villanelle, or tell a story with a ballad. Every single one of these is like a different container to pour your ideas into, and each one has its own special kind of power.
I absolutely love this line. Why? Because it proves this poem isn't just some dry, boring list. It's actually giving us these playful challenges. A lipogram is where you try to write something while avoiding a specific letter, like the letter E. An epigram is just a short, witty little saying. So the poem is basically telling us, hey, don't just be clever. Give yourself a real creative puzzle to solve.
And here's another fantastic kick in the pants. The poet is warning us against getting lazy or too simple. Don't just write 2 lines that rhyme and call it a day. Be ambitious. Really dig into your idea, expand on it. Turn that simple little couplet into a full, rich stanza that has some real depth. It's a call to be bold with your writing.
So we've built our toolkit. We've looked at the blueprints, but that brings us to the most crucial part of the poem, and honestly, of poetry itself. What do you actually do with all these rules? Well, this section is all about finding freedom within the form.
The poem gives us a really important warning right here. It says, if you follow the rules too perfectly, if you let the meter control your every move, your work can end up feeling, well, ordinary, uninspired. It becomes predictable, almost robotic. You sound like you're tightly chained. And then you get this,
the glorious payoff. This is the poem's real message, its core idea. The whole point of learning all these rules about feet and meter and sonnets and all of it isn't so you can be trapped by them. It's so you can understand them so deeply that you can use them, bend them, and even break them with purpose. That knowledge, that is what sets you free.
So when you boil it all down, that's the ultimate takeaway. Mastering the craft, filling up your toolkit, it's not about building yourself a cage. It's about building a solid foundation so you can launch your own unique, authentic, and powerful voice into the world. It doesn't restrict you, it empowers you.
I had to end with this last little gem from the poem. It's just so charming. After all this serious talk about structure and rhythm, it reminds us, hey, keep it stylish. Keep a sense of flow. Don't get so bogged down in the rules that you forget to sound good. It's just the perfect little wink to the reader.
And that's where we land. We've taken apart the craft, using the cadence as our instruction manual. We've seen how tiny sounds grow into lines, and how lines grow into entire poetic forms. The tools are all laid out for you now. The toolkit is officially open. The only question left is, what will you build?